Puppets versus Nazis. Whoever wins, we lose. Welcome to the third instalment of my Puppetmaster review series. This one's a prequel, which I was slightly disappointed about because I'd been looking forward to seeing where Camille and the puppets were going to go after the conclusion of number 2 in the present day. But no, we're going back into the past again to hang out a bit more with Andre Toulon. Yeah, he's back again. So this story takes place mostly in Nazi Germany during the Second World War. Toulon is in the process of building up his puppet army, but the Nazis are onto him. They want to steal his secret formula so they can resurrect their dead soldiers and basically send zombified Nazis to the Russian front to fight the Russians. Now, I'll say at this point, this film did disappoint me a little bit compared to the first two Puppetmasters. The weird thing is, over the past few weeks, I've sort of gone online a bit to gauge other people's opinions of these films, and I've even watched a couple of rankings on YouTube, and it always seems to be Puppetmaster 2 and 3, which are considered the best of this franchise. I get it when it comes to number 2. I don't get it so much when it comes to this one, because I thought the quality of this one was a bit of a drop-off, like I said, compared to 1 and 2, and we'll get into the reasons why. I think one of the biggest reasons is the fact that the puppets are sort of good in this one. We're meant to root for them and Toulon in their battle to stay hidden from the Nazis, but I think these films are much more effective when we're hanging out with protagonists who are constantly scared that the puppets are going to come out at any moment and get them. I've seen other series make this mistake. You know, Child's Play, it got to the 4th film, Bride of Chucky, suddenly Chucky's the star, we're meant to root for him, and at that point it just wasn't as good for me. I know they sort of course corrected that a bit later down the line. Nightmare on Elm Street, another example. By the time it got to Nightmare 4, 5, you know, Freddy was the star, he was front and centre, we were sort of meant to cheer for him a little bit, not just be afraid of him. So when it comes to Puppetmaster 3, there is that straight away in terms of why I don't like it so much. And also the location didn't do as much for me in this one. Not so much the setting, I didn't mind there being a film in the 1940s, in the past. But compared to the Boyega Hotel, the location of this film is really drab and grey. The whole time we're hanging out in people's sitting rooms and warehouse rooms and back alleys. I just found it really uninspiring. I think I said in my Puppetmaster 2 review that I would like to see somewhere different than the Boyega Hotel, but I think that was a case of being careful what you wish for, because during this film, I just wanted to go back to the Boyega Hotel again. The characters are very throwaway. I mean, they were in number 2, to be fair, but that film got away with some underwhelming characterisation in parts because the rest of the film was so awesome. Puppetmaster 3 doesn't have that luxury. Toulon just doesn't make for a very captivating lead, and his depiction here completely contradicts with what we saw of him in number 2. So I can only imagine that when the puppets gave him that formula at the beginning of number 2, that turned him evil in that moment. And possibly that would also explain why they then are so quick to turn on him at the end of number 2, because maybe they're a little bit freaked out by the change in his personality. But going back to number 3, I just don't think it works having this guy as the lead. He's more like a cuddly grandpa secondary character, a bit like Christopher Lloyd in Piranha, for example. And I didn't much like his opposite number who worked for the Nazis either. The two of them get together in the second half of this film, but they're just boring old farts. The villains aren't much better. The main villain, who bizarrely looks like he's had plastic surgery, just comes across like a one-dimensional villain straight out of an 80s action film. He's got this ginger understudy who I can only describe as being like a 20-year-old man-child with glasses on. He's awful. He's constantly trying to be evil and not doing a good job of it. The scene where he gaslights Toulon in his own living room is just really cringeworthy, and I was very happy when that character was killed off halfway through the movie. But the film as a whole is just not that compelling or even believable. I mean, from the moment that the Nazis found out about Toulon and his puppets, that should have been the end of the story. I mean, the puppets are tough, but they can't take on the might of the German army. So I think this film should have been set in a small village in the middle of the countryside in Germany rather than somewhere like Berlin, for the same reason that The Eagle Has Landed takes place in an English village. It's not like Michael Caine was going to fly his troops into the middle of London and take on the entire English resistance. That would have been ridiculous. So I get that this film has a small budget, but it doesn't make adjustments because of that budget. I mean, they've made an effort. They've shoved like 20, 30 extras at one point around an apartment building and put 1940s clothes on them, but it's not enough. This film doesn't in the slightest bit feel like Berlin. Dad's Army, the TV show, has got more troops than what we see in Hitler's Berlin as shown in this film. So let's move on to the positives. So if you're a Puppetmaster 3 fan and you've been sat there for the last 5 minutes with clenched fists just wanting to punch me through the screen, this is the section for you. And let's start, I guess, by talking about Six Shooter, the brand new puppet introduced for this movie. He's an awesome creation. I love his cowboy voice, and the idea of giving him 6 arms with 6 shooters is just brilliant. I am curious though, does Toulon just create these guns by magic? I know he can bring the puppet to life with magic, but can he also just magic up 6 custom pistols with little tiny bullets? I suppose it's not worth overthinking. He definitely gets the best kill in this film though, when he shimmies up this wall and kills Walter Gotell's character. Most of the other kills in the movie are not much to write home about. I just remember a lot of people being tripped up by a puppet and then they just lie on the floor, unconvincingly refusing to get up while the puppets finish them off. But going back to Walter Gotell, actually, that would be my next positive because he has a fun little part. He plays one of the Nazis, but he's like the highest ranked of all of them, but he just doesn't seem to be taking it seriously. He seems to giggle and smile in a lot of his scenes. Gotell is a great actor. I've seen him in James Bond films, The X-Files. No disrespect to fans of this movie, but this film sort of seems a little bit beneath him. So I can imagine he just looked at the script for this, saw that he had loads of scenes with naked women and thought, well, sounds like a fun few days and I get a paycheck. I'd love to know if he even watched this film after he'd done it. I've also got Sarah Douglas in the mix of Superman fame. So, I mean, this is a weak movie, but it's got 2 absolutely high-class actors in Walter Gotell and Sarah Douglas. And I could absolutely believe that they changed the script once they realised they had Douglas, because she was probably about 40 when she did this movie, and the guy who plays Toulon is like in his 70s surely. Massive age gap, and I bet that Toulon's wife was about 60 originally. Once they realised they had Douglas, they just went with it, made her a younger woman, and they've even got a line of dialogue in there where the wife seems to be reasserting that yes, she really does love him despite the age gap. Going back to Six Shooter, I guess he must die at some point between the 3rd film and the 1st film, because he doesn't die in this one. So are we going to get more prequels set between number 3 and number 1? I guess we'll see as we go through the series. Time to show you the version of the film that I've got. I've got the 88 Films Blu-ray. There's not too much in the way of features, but it does have an audio commentary done by David DeCoteau and Courtney Joyner. Now, I must confess, I have not listened to this commentary. It's the first time so far in this review series I have not listened to the commentary on the Blu-ray. In all honesty, I just couldn't be bothered. The film just wasn't good enough. Had I listened to the commentary, maybe I could have found out why Leech Woman is in this film doing her thing again, because I know that Charles Band, before he did Puppetmaster 2, he was passed some notes from up above saying, look, you've got to kill this Leech Woman character off without using those leeches because it's just disgusting. You don't want that in the film. So that's what he did. But in number 3, Leech Woman's back in all her glory with leeches all over the place again. So what happened between 2 and 3 that kind of reversed this situation? At this point, had they just realised that these films were just never going to be big box office, so they just kind of decided, well, you know what, Charles, sod it, just go and do what you want. So I don't know what the story was with that. In terms of me moving on to Puppetmaster 4, I'm still curious to do that, but I don't want to buy any more Blu-rays at this point until I've seen the movies, because I don't want to end up with 14 Puppetmaster movies on Blu-ray and I only like 2 of them. Ideally, I'd like to rent the films from this point onwards, because each Blu-ray costs me like £16, £17. That's a lot of money. In dollars, that's surely way over $20. So the problem, though, is that you can't actually rent these movies anywhere. I've looked. If you know anywhere online that you can rent Puppetmaster movies without having to subscribe to anything, let me know and I'll check it out. But as far as I'm aware, the only way to watch these movies without having the physical media is to subscribe to Full Moon Productions. You can do that through Amazon Prime. It's like £4 a month, but I don't want to subscribe to anything else. I'm subscribed to a lot of stuff. The thing with me and subscriptions is I set them up and then I just totally forget about them. And then months down the line, I suddenly think to myself, oh shit, that thing I subscribed to, I've probably been paying it for like the last 11 months and I've not even used it. I've just lost like 60 quid or something when I didn't have to. So, I don't know. What I'll probably end up doing is just buying the Puppetmaster 4 Blu-ray, but I might slow my pace at this juncture. I don't want to be buying Puppetmaster Blu-rays every month for the rest of 2022, so expect a Puppetmaster 4 review. It might not be completely straight away. I guess we'll just see. Right, for now, let's get to the bag of terror and find out how I'm going to score this movie. So we got one. Is that it? Nah, we got a second one. I'll give it 2 bloody axes, mainly for Walter Gotell and 6 Shooter, but it ain't really a good film. It's a huge drop off from Puppetmaster 2, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of Puppetmaster 1 as well. So I wouldn't quite call this a dud, but it's certainly extremely mediocre. It was disappointing, I've got to admit. But hopefully Puppetmaster 4 will take us back in the opposite direction again. We'll see. So until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.